Good evening. Welcome to Investigator News. And it's me and William tonight with the World War III report. Boy, we got a lot of news for you. The news that's not being seen by the mainstream media. It really concerns me because when me and William talked this afternoon, as we do on every Wednesday, I started noticing a trend that the media is all into. Let's look at the polls. Let's look at the caucus. And I did this last night. Let's not look at what's going on around the world. So me and William got a lot of what's going on around the world that they don't want you to know about. Now, I do want to start with um, Biden is will host the congressional leaders at the White House. He did that today for the future and national security package. Now, which would unlock funding for the whole thing is they want money for Ukraine and Israel, or mostly Ukraine. And of course, the GOP is going to throw in the southern border if passed. Democrats want foreign aid voted on separate, while Republicans, of course, want border security. The U.S. military, 2 Navy SEALs were lost at sea. Now, this is according to Central Command, and it says the SEALs are directly involved in intercepting a weapons shipment from Iran to the Houthi rebels in Yemen. The American forces invest uh, that was carrying advanced conventional weapons, including missile components. The United States is keeping high pressure on the Houthis yesterday. They carried out more strikes against the group in Yemen, targeting uh, 4 anti-ship ballistic missiles that were about to be launched. And the new strikes, um, now this has been confirmed. The Biden administration plans to uh, uh, re, reclaim or designate the Houthis as terrorist organization. The move that will also put economic pressure on Iran, the disbat group, and the United States, its allies working to keep the front with Yemen. Israel is continuing to fight Hamas and Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon yesterday. Israelis carried out new strikes. It was mostly at Hezbollah. Now, infrastructure in the Middle East is preparing for the possibility of much of the border regional conflict that is.
Elly,
Yeah,
Hezbollah up there has 150,000 rockets available to them. I read about.
yeah. Now, we now the seals. Now, me and you talked extensively about these seals because it's a big thing right now. Everybody is now the mainstream media are ignoring it. That's why I decided to jump on what's going on with the seals. Now, you told me that this is what'd you call it?
So it was aborting with prejudice.
There you go.
So an unprejudicial boarding is where a captain will stop and agree to be boarded. These guys boarded at night with nods, the whole bit, surreptitiously, and they're the ones that found these weapons and guidance systems and whatnot being sent to the Houthis. But one of the SEALs going up the rope lost his grip. And this is one of the most dangerous things you can do as a SEAL, is a surreptitious boarding. You're safer to fast rope on onto a ship than you are to board over the side, up the side. Anyhow, when one SEAL went in, of course, SEALs will help each other when they're in distress. So the SEAL that was near him dropped in as well, because two SEAls working together have a greater likelihood of survival than a SEAL alone. The problem is when they board these ships at night, they're underway. They could be drug under and struck by anything that protrudes down into the water or the propeller. And if the crew of the ship they're boarding happens to notice they're trying to be boarded, they'll try to swing away from the boat that's trying to board them, and that moves the propeller and the rudder right in the way of the SEALs. So there's a chance that happened. Now, having said that, during the Grenada, when we went into Grenada to save those students, we sent in a group of SEALs by helicopter that were going to fast rope in and save a British diplomat that was there. Well, it was at night. It was in bad weather, and they were asked whether they wanted their mission to be a go or no go. They said go.
Yeah.
And it was 7 or 8 SEAls went out the helicopter, did parachute drop, and they didn't go onto the island. They went into the ocean.
Right.
Well, they were able to get most of them. I think they were able to get 5 of them, and they lost 3. So this is the kind of thing that happens whenever you're doing risky operations. That's what these guys are. That's what's in their DNA. You don't raise a SEAL. SEALs are born.
Right.
It's what they do. It's who they are. So to have 2 SEAls go in, that's not surprising. Having just 1 SEAL go in, that would be surprising. But 2 go in, that's not surprising. And even though they went, I think they went in Tuesday or Wednesday, there'll be lookouts watching for these guys for weeks, because these guys are trained to be survivors, right? And so they're not going to give up on them immediately. It will take a while. The same thing happened in Grenada. They were out there, I think they were watching for 2 or 3 weeks before they came to their, they announced them as being MIA. So that's a missing in action issue. Yeah. Is there anything you want me to answer any more about that?
No, I'm gonna keep going on this. Oh boy.
You have to keep in mind when those guys go on these phones.
Now I want to switch to Lloyd Austin with this 911 call to get this out of the way. His aide called 911 for him to be picked up. So one of the aides knew about this. Let's see if I can get this. They asked first responders to be discreet with when arriving at the defense attorney's home and take a listen to Fairfax County 911. What is your emergency? And what they said was, ma'am, my name is, and I work for, they're not going to give the info. And I'm requesting the ambulance to be taken, and I can ask the ambulance not to show up with sirens and lights. Because this is Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of the government, and we're trying to be very discreet. So this was an aide that knew about this when They were questioned by our Congress and others. Nobody knew anything. So a top aide had requested the, and according to this, he was on vacation and outside the country when he called. Um, so it's going to be, this is really odd. This is happening because now we have other people in Congress that are now having issues with pancreatic cancer. Now we have a congressman that is now having a blood transfusion. Uh, that is, he's one of the oldest GOPs. Now, do we look into it? The Democrats are hard on this, saying, "Oh, he needs to be taken out." Why? He is part of with Comer to take down Biden and expose what is going on with um, this Hunter Biden and Biden, Joe Biden, and this whole mess with him uh, um, dealing with China. So, I'm going to go with, let's go back to Lloyd Austin, where there have been 137 attacks on U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria 24 while he was in the hospital. And we're going to concentrate on what? GOP, because they got someone going in for blood infusions. How about we just worry about what Lloyd Austin is doing? And then in the meantime, Blinken is addressing the Iran nuclear agreement and Davo saying, I think it's a big mistake to tear up the Iran nuclear agreement. Now, William, this is where me and you talked about, because people are getting this so confused with the Houthi agreement that was torn up. There was never agreement. There was never an agreement. And
So
then they throw
there
in
was
the Iran. Now hold on. They throw in the Iran JOPO. What is it? JPOA with Iran. Well, what they want to do is they want to throw this in to say Trump tore this up, and then they had to come because what Trump did. They had to come back in and fix it. No, there. And then they said that this agreement that Trump tore up was in a box that was found in Mar-a-Lago. No, it was not. This is a farce. And all they're trying to do, folks, is get you confused with JPOA, with Iran. And now get this, there was never an agreement made with Yemen and Houthis. Trump said, no, we're not going to, they're terrorists. We're not going to do it. There was no such agreement. So, William, I'm going to go ahead and let you go into this.
So one thing they're trying to do is confabulate that the JCPOA agreement under Obama and the Houthis being listed as terrorists are part of one and the same. These are two completely separate things that are going. Now, Iran is arming the Houthis, but that's on the Iranian side. That has nothing to do with the United States. Now, the Houthis were listed as terrorists, I believe, under
Obama,
right?
Now, but now get this. The only thing with Obama administration, they were going from Iran to keep them from getting nuclear weapons. And so they were saying, we can't let you really do that, but we're going to work with you. We know you're nice. You're a nice country. We don't want to do sanctions. How about we work this out? And if we give you money, will you stop doing the nuclear program? And they're saying, of course we will. But we all know they didn't do that.
So Trump canceled the JCPOA, saying that it wouldn't work because they were sending money. After Trump left, Biden came in and reversed both the wanted to restart the JCPOA with Blinken to get that done, and then he removed the terror listing on the Houthis so that they would no longer be sanctioned. Now,
Right.
just recently, they're going to list the Houthis as a terrorist organization. However, they're no longer going to sanction them. So it's words without a bite. And as far as the JCPOA, I don't think that was ever completely agreed to with Iran, but we're sending them in. We've been sending them some
Right.
money.
But see, now what me and William is trying to do, folks, is explain that these are two different issues. Because when we did sanctions on Yemen, it had nothing to do with Iran. And it should have been. And now get this, we're putting sanctions on Yemen and saying, and the Houthis saying you're kind of sort of a terrorist group, but now the agreement with Iran, now they're going to go ahead and say, if we're nice to you and we send you more money, will you stop doing what you're doing? That's where we're at.
Right. So the Houthis aren't being sanctioned, but could be sanctioned. And Iran is doing what Iran does. And of course, between Hamas, Iran, and the Houthis, they have called for terrorist attacks within the United States by people that are already here. So that fatwa has been issued also the other day.
So don't get confused, folks, because the media, I'm going to even say Fox News is doing it. Even conservative news is doing it, where I think they're confused because we have to keep Iran and Houthi separate. And because Iran is giving Houthi weapons, it's all starting to jungle together. No, we can't. We can't jungle it together because who's ultimately responsible? Iran. So no matter what we do to Houthi, and we're going to sanction them, we're going to put a hard sanction on them. Why not Iran? Because they're the ones feeding Houthi and Hamas and Hezbollah. But see, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that.
Well, Iranians are Persians. You can't do that to Persians in this government. Also, keep in mind that Trump issued only one executive order that involved this, and that was canceling the JCPOA during his administration because it was just a bunch of bunk. He never got involved with the Houthis whatsoever, except for allowing the Saudis to buy arms to attack the Houthis, who had already attacked Saudi Arabia. Now, when Biden came in, Houthis were no longer terrorists, there were no longer sanctions, and oh, by the way, Saudi Arabia, you can't buy any more of our weapons unless you stop attacking the Houthis.
Yeah.
So it was a protection racket for the Houthis as soon as the Biden administration came in. And then they wanted to reinstitute the JCPOA, which Iran would never agree to, if you remember, because it was being the diplomacy between the United States and Iran and the United Nations was being done by Russia. So there was no chance of it ever happening.
Right. Now, you know, what gets me, William, is when we look at these terrorist groups and this administration, and even going back to Obama, Biden administration, they had bought into, now, Obama was looking into the Muslim support, but then he was looking at everything that we could pull out of as far as wars, to where we would leave equipment for certain terrorist groups. Now we have looked at that when you look at the Biden administration with Obama administration in place in our country and top government chairs, we are now looking at that Biden is now, he has bought resources into where Hamas is at. where Hezbollah is at, where in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Ukraine. Um, this Biden administration has bought into so many resources that they're making money off of it. Even China. We haven't even dug
So
into China. So,
it's
um,
it's easiest to make money dealing with a terrorist organization because you don't have to deal with other NGOs or other stable governments, right? That have, we don't have oversight over any of these terrorist organizations. So it's really easy to get kickbacks
mhm.
anytime you send them aid. And so, it is what it is. The president and his organization are what they are. They're still our president. It's still our administration. But he tends to favor, I hate to say it, terrorists.
Right.
I don't think it's ideological. I think it's just good business.
Yeah, and now it was asked, what are the sanctions? Now, officials said they would design the financial penalties to minimize harm to 32 million people who are among the world's poorest and the hungriest after years of war between Iran-backed and Houthis. But aid officials expressed concern. The decision would not only add another level of uncertainty and threat for Yemenians still caught in one of the world's largest humanitarian crises. So, Linda, think of it this way. Isn't that what happened with the Palestinians? We're going to put a bunch of sanctions on a terrorist group that have taken over a country. And in order for this country to get not sanctions for the people, oh, look at the poor people. Look at what's going on. You can't starve them. Okay, so we're going to give you leeway. And I hope you guys understand this. And William, I'll let you go into this because this is something we really need to know because it's country after country after country this is going on. Even with Somalians. Oh, let's not let the Somalians starve. But they were terrorists that were before even Houthis were stopping ships. They were stopping them. And we had to, no, you guys can't do that. And then we ended up pushing into war. That's not well known. But every time we keep going after sanctions for these terrorist countries, it's because we feel sorry for the people. When are we going to start feeling sorry for the people that when we attack, they rise up? Look at what Houthi, thousands showed up to say, thousands of Yemenians showed up to say, we're in support of Houthi. Same way with North Korea, China, all of these places. If they don't show up, then they're going to have someone show up at the door and shoot them, right?
Right. It's called rent a crowd.
So, Linda, do you understand the sanctions there? See what's happening. How many times we have gone to war just in the last 2 years, 3 years since Biden administration went in, and it's only for one world power. And we looked at, let's say, Davos right now happening. Um, um, when we look at Davos and the one world order, it's not going like they want because they want every country to be brought down and everybody to be equal. The problem is the United States. William, I think you said there's other entities running the country.
So here's the problem is I believe the world's looking at the United States and seeing our different departments like the EPA or like the State Department or USAID. It's like they're all going on their own. They've decided to go out on their own little franchise and decide what their foreign policy is going to be. It's not like a national foreign policy. It's like a bunch of subcontractors deciding what they're going to do without national policy. And that's what it looks like. When you go to Davos, you've got Blinken there. You've got Jake Sullivan, John Kerry. You have Senator, who is it?
Durbin is one.
Joe Manchin's.
Raskin's another one.
So Democrat Senator Joe Manchin's there trying to tell them that we need to maintain oil and gas exploration and production in the United States to help our allies. But he's talking to the wrong crowd. And also we have people there like David Solomon he's the CEO of Goldman Sachs. Of course, you got Microsoft's founder Bill Gates is there. You've got Karen Harris of Bain and Company arguing about her pandemic issues. So we've got all these people at Davos, and then you've got the Secretary General of NATO at Davos deciding, not at the UN or at the NATO National Security Conference, but at Davos deciding that, well, we're going to supply Ukraine and we're going to bomb, according to what it was saying in the newspapers, we're going to bomb our way to peace in Ukraine. Well, when did bombing your way to peace ever really work?
And, Linda said the people don't get it anyway when the country is run by thugs. She has a really good point there. But what we're trying to point out tonight is that, we pay the way for the thugs not to strike. And we're giving them millions of dollars, but we have to look at where's we say follow the money. We followed the money to Iran, and now Iran, since it's on the verge of where they're going to lose these billions of dollars. So what are they going to do? They have now moved revolutionary troops to Yemen to help fight the war. So you could see that
these aren't just regular Iranian army. This is the Revolutionary Guard. It's like the Republican Guard for Saddam Hussein. This is the top notch of the Iranian army.
Yeah,
has been sent there. These are like sending the U.S. Army Rangers.
And they're taking a direct role in the Red Sea attacks. Now, that's according to what we got coming from the Pentagon. And the member of Iran Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps are in Yemen and assisting the country's Houthi rebel terror group. And it's an ongoing assault on civilian shipping in the Red Sea. So it doesn't really say that they're going to go after U.S. ships. They're going to go after those that can't fight. What?
And it's not just them coming after the United States ships and U.S. cargo and anybody that's involved within our coalition, but the Republican or the Revolutionary Guard are assaulting and coercing the Houthis in that rebel part of Yemen. So the civilian population are being pummeled by these people and forced into cooperation.
Yeah. Well, when I seen the parade for the Houthi, I went, wow, is everybody in that country stupid? But but you got to look at the Revolutionary Guard isn't just there to help them. They're there to train them. We're talking, I don't want to say sand dummies, because that's very racist. but they have just been raised to hate, and they're only going to go on what they've been trained. Well, now we have this Revolutionary Guard that's going down there, and now they're getting better, they're getting stronger, as well as the amount of weapons poured in, just like we've seen with Ukraine with Zelensky, and the same thing with Hamas and Hezbollah. And you follow the money, and it goes right back to the United States or the
It's
EU.
coming out of USAID. Now, we send money to countries, aid to nations all over the world. That's usually used to stabilize countries, right?
Yeah.
Like Mexico gets the money. It helps stabilize Mexico. It helps stabilize Ecuador before this rebellion. It's used to stabilize these countries that could be easily fractured and at least get enough food into those countries that there's not famine.
Right.
But that's not the case with these Houthis, and it's not the case with Hamas, and it's not the case with Hezbollah. They don't give that money to the people. If you look at what's manufactured in Gaza, you know, when Israel left and forcibly took people who had, from Israel who had moved into Gaza, forcibly removed them, they had this huge industry where they did, and with thousands and thousands of greenhouses where they did flowers and vegetables and all kinds of stuff that they were selling to the world. Well, as soon as Israel left, Hamas burned them all to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So these people don't actually have a way to make an income. They're completely dependent on aid. So these wars are being fomented and supplied with money from the West. They don't get aid from the East. They're not getting aid from Saudi Arabia, right? They're not getting aid from the East. They're getting it from Europe, and they're getting it from the United States. Now, we need to stop funding terror.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my idea.
Okay. Let's see what I got.
So I still have some Russian aircraft that went down.
Now,
aircraft.
Now before we go there, we have got Iran that I want to finish up kind of with the Houthis, where Iran not only sent their army down there, but they have sent missiles that can reach not only Israel, but any United States target in Middle East and Europe now.
Right. You have to keep in mind that the Revolutionary Guard's also been sent to Hezbollah in southern Lebanon.
Right. So now go ahead with, I just want to let everybody know that this is something that's been uncovered by the Department of Defense and the Pentagon. Now, you mentioned earlier, William, before you go on with that, is one of my big questions of who's running everything. And Lloyd Austin in the hospital, I've seen the military jumping in and doing their own thing. Now, you said earlier that it seems, and I don't know if you have stuff to go with it, but it seems like our country is now got these entities that through the advisors, the Biden advisors, are acting. And this really concerns me when you said it, because if we got all these different actors that are advisors running this country, then no wonder China, Russia, North Korea, all of these, or even these terrorist countries are laughing at us.
We're just recognizing now that different departments are running as different franchises of the United States, just like McDonald's has the main entity, and then there's all these different franchises and stores throughout the country and throughout the world, right? They don't always do exactly the same thing, and that's what we're seeing with our own government. We've got people that are creating their own policy and moving it forward. If you look at what's happening with Hezbollah, with Hamas, and with the Houthis, it's basically the funding's coming from the State Department and attacking the Defense Department through those organizations, right? And so those are different franchisees, if you understand what I'm saying. And then we've got people like Jacob Sullivan that keeps changing what the president say one thing, and Jacob Sullivan will, within a couple, 2 or 3 days, roll that back and make it something else, right? He's in the National Security Committee. So he's running his operation. You had John Kerry out doing his thing, right, in the world. And it's a little bit of chaos. I mean, why is Joe Manchin having to go to Davos to try to make it so that oil and gas can be produced in the United States? That's complete bullshit. You go to the President of the United States, you don't go to the World Economic Forum to get authorization to maintain gas and oil actually in the United States. That's nuts. That's what I call franchise, being their own franchisees. Joe Manchin's in the wrong place, asking the wrong people for the wrong thing. Now he's running for president. I get that, right? But he's not in charge of our foreign policy. He's just a senator. That's in contravention of the Logan Act. You can't be out doing that stuff.
Yeah, and and at the same time, we got North Korea that's gone to the UN and wants South Korea called the most hostile state, and having them claim as terrorists. They're really changing the game on who they're attacking, and it shows when we had Russia with Ukraine and everybody stuck up with the Ukrainians, and we said Israel with Hamas, and everybody sticking up for Hamas. Now Kim Jong-un is saying South Korea should be seen as the most hostile state, to where North Korea is the victim.
Right, so they're using the United Nations and the world courts against these well-behaving states and ridiculing them. It's like upside down bizarro world, right? It's nuts. And they're able to get away with this because you have the people that were screaming anti-apartheid and whatever down in South Africa when they were segregated, right? But then these people go out and start killing all of their farmers, and yet when Hamas gets in trouble, they run to the world court and say, well, Israel doesn't have a right to exist in the first place, and they're engaged in genocide. And nobody will allow testimony to come to the fore that Israel is attacked and Hamas is holding hostages that were hostages before Israel reacted to it.
Yeah.
So this,
and the thing that gets me is that
people don't recognize that when they vote for president of the United States, they're voting for the leader of the free world.
Yes.
When the President of the United States is weak, every other country goes out on their own, all these small countries doing their own thing, setting up their own treaties, and what happens is we end up in a World War that way. It's how World War I happened. It's how World War II happened. They didn't expect that to happen, but treaties kept getting violated, and other countries kept jumping in to support other countries. And so pretty soon, everybody was at war. Well, when you get a weak presidency, that's what happens.
Yeah.
That happened with Delano Roosevelt.
Yeah.
He
And
was building this great society here at home, and the rest of the world just went nuts because he didn't have a foreign policy that was worth having. He didn't lead the world. Who decided to finally lead the world? Well, it was an Englishman that was part of their Navy department, right? Churchill decided he was going to be the leader of the free world because nobody else was standing up. And then he came and basically shamed the United States into at least protecting itself and help manufacture, let companies build stuff for the English that were under siege. So Winston Churchill should have never been the leader of the free world. And that's what we have. We're going to see somebody else stand up. Look, we didn't go and bomb the Houthis. We went after the Prime Minister of England said, we're going to bomb them, and you can go with us or not. We're going anyway. If you come along, that would be great. And the United States says, yeah, well, I guess we should, right? I mean, we don't want to be seen as weaker than the UK. Of course, we have to jump in. So we shouldn't have our leadership going on at the Secretary of the NATO and the Prime Minister of England and the Prime Minister of Canada. The United States is who basically guarantees freedom of access of the world's oceans and commerce. We guarantee it. We're the big dog on the block. And if we don't stand up and lead that, then all kinds of chaos ensues. And it's not good. It's not good for us. It's not good for those small countries either, because it causes their commerce to get all jumbled, right? They're losing money. Everybody loses money because you don't have one secure, strong leader that maintains an order that's functional in the world. All of a sudden, when you have a weak leader, sanctions don't mean anything because everybody violates them, right? That's what's happening with Russia. You become a paper tiger, and you can't send your military out to be, your show that you have a spine and you can stand up for yourself. That's supposed to be done at the White House, right? You use the military for interdicting these problems before they happen or going to war. That's what you use the military for. But if you look what's happening in D.C., you have all these different people running their own franchise. Everybody's free to do anything they want because there's not going to be retaliation.
Right.
All right. I've done my rant.
And so, as we look at the war that's ramping up in the Middle East, because it's all about the Middle East. It's not Israel and Hamas. It's not Houthi and the Arabs. It's not Iran with Iran and Israel. This is a war that Iran is basically given the money for to ramp up a war in the Middle East. as we look at over in with Kim Jong-un. That, and I mentioned this earlier, it just seems to me, it seems weird. Kim Jong-un goes over and he has his advisors are meeting with Putin advisors. In the meantime, more advisors from North Korea and we think Jinping is talking to China. And all of this is coming down, and now we have weapons from North Korea and missiles going to Putin. At the same time, we got Putin giving weapons to North Korea and China and working as like a trio to go to war with who? Taiwan.
So Putin said,
I think, William, I think it's Asia. I don't think it's just Taiwan, because we have North Korea going out after South Korea. Now we have North Korea mad at the Philippines. We have North Korea mad at Japan. So to me, it's an Indo-Asia or an Asian country, a war that's building up.
Yeah, it's the whole Asian continent with the exception of India.
Right. And see, that's what nobody's talking about, though.
You even had yesterday Iran go into a tribal area, fly into Pakistani airspace and bomb one of the tribal stands in Pakistan and kill a couple children because they could. They just did it.
Yeah.
So you've got Iran building better guided missiles for Russia. You've got North Korea doing the same thing, right? But they're getting food and money as being bought, from Russia, and probably getting fuel oil as well, right? So that's a good business deal. But you're right; it's all of Asia. And keep in mind, from a European Asia-centric mindset, the center of Asia that has no ocean access, they believe that area is the key to controlling the entire world. And this has been since the 1600s. And so the second you don't have a strong United States or a global power, these people are off to the races. And it doesn't make any sense to the West at all, right?
Yeah. And China warns against escalating strikes on, let's see if I can get this up, on Houthis. They said, U.S. don't fire on Houthis or we might have to react. They've done that. Me and William over and over and over and over again on the World War III report said they draw the line in the sand, they flex their muscles, and then they make the threat. And they're hoping something sticks. They're hoping, it's like when you throw something up against the wall, you hope it sticks. Some of these people do. And when it don't, they're like, okay, that didn't work. Let's try something else. And I really do think that I'm going to say world leaders are putting together something that we have a war in the Middle East, but we have a war in Asia at the same time to deplete our military weapons. That's all I can think, William. Why would they do this? But to deplete the United States and make us weaker.
And depopulate the planet.
Right, that too.
Because war is the best way to depopulate the planet, especially of men. Except for this time, right? We're in the Middle East, so women and children are equal targets.
Right. Now,
terrible.
Now I've finished up mine. I know you had a few things you wanted to throw in there. So have at it, William.
Okay. So
I think I've picked at you already. I'm picking.
Well, right now we're having Hamas or Palestinian protest at the international court, outside the court. At the same time, South Africa is bringing a case before the World Court over Israel.
Yeah.
So remember, last weekend we had Palestinian sympathizers trying to break down the gates in front of Secret Service at the White House. All right, this is the same thing, but it's going on at the United Nations at The Hague at the World Court. They call this the International Court of Justice at the Peace Palace in The Hague, and the United Nations is in New York, but the court is in The Hague, in the Netherlands. So that's happening. We have a serious problem that happened in Ukraine. So there's these aircraft called Illusion 22s. Now, you probably heard of our own AWACS. It's like a KC-135, except for it's got a rotating dome on the top, right? And they use it to have lookout and look down radar of areas. Well, Russia has 9 of those as well, right? They have their own version, and theirs is called the IL-22. Like ours, it's a 4-engine aircraft, like the Boeing 707 KC-135. That's happening. Well, in the Crimea, remember that bridge got bombed. So the Russians put up an air defense over the Crimea, right? Because they didn't want that bridge bombed anymore. Well, one of their IL-22s were flying over. They weren't able to communicate with it, or whatever happened, and they fired on one of their own AWACS, and they didn't shoot it down, but they caught it on fire, and it landed on fire, and there were casualties involved in that landing, and then of course that aircraft burned up on the runway. Then they had another one dispatched over towards Ukraine, over the provinces, and that was shot down by Ukrainians. So in 2 days, they've lost 2 of their AWACS, and they only had 9 to begin with. So what? That's a quarter of their fleet of their AWACS in a day. So that happened. That's big news. We had a launch of a rocket from Cape Canaveral down in Florida by Astroborex, I think is what they called it. Anyway, they were going to land put a lunar lander on the moon, right? Well, there was a propellant leak in it, and so it got to altitude and then disintegrated, burn up. Well, that lander is supposed to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere on the 18th, what's today, 17th, tomorrow, and they're saying that there's little likelihood of it hurting anybody.
Yeah.
Well, you guys saw the Apollo lander, right? That's a big chunk of machinery.
Yeah.
That could definitely come down on a city someplace and, do some damage someplace. So, yes, they're saying that. Perhaps that's true. I'm not sure I agree with it. I mean, 2/3 of the Earth is ocean, right? So, that way, that's true. The likelihood is it won't land on the ground anyway, but if it does, it's going to be serious. Now, we have people at NBC that are saying if former President Trump wins the election in 2024, that there could be a military coup because, the liberals aren't going to be happy with it. Davos is not going to be happy with it. The WEFC see Trump and Trump supporters as the most dangerous entity on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So they're
And
serious about it.
Karen kind of asked a question right in the midst of this that has to go with this, because we have protesters here in this country that that are spouting support for Hamas, Houthi, and other things. And if everybody would realize that these are Palestinians that are that were born and raised to hate Israel, but the United States, it makes a lot of sense. That's why they're protesting, but we're allowing it. I think it's to dumb down the American people of what's coming into our country. So go ahead.
Well, it's politics by breeding. You send the young men here, they get involved with the young ladies, the families get involved here. Now they have children here with Americans, and then they can push their politics, and they can use, the power of the citizenship of an entire family instead of just an individual,
right,
to press their political aims. And so they do politics by birth. They do war by birth. Anytime you send money into one of these countries that have a high child death rate, right, you're encouraging that country to go into like child bloom. All of a sudden you have all these children. The second there's money that flows in, more children live.
Yep.
And there's not room and that money's going to be cut off, right?
Yeah.
It's only there temporarily. And as soon as it's cut off, where are those people going to go? They're going to migrate, right? And where are they going to go? Where the money is. They're not idiots, right? And so they're coming here. They're bringing their politics with them. Okay, and it may not be directly influenced, right? This is like a secondary and a tertiary effect of influence, and it's what's happened over and over and over, and we have to just recognize it for what it is. Okay, there was one other thing. So it's either the Houthis, Iran, or Hamas has issued a fatwa against all Jews and Christians. So all Muslims should jihad against all Christians and Jews in the West. So that came out of the Middle East. Then you've got, of course, China saying they're gonna intervene if the United States continues hitting targets inside. I forgot the name of the country where the Houthis are, and it's chaos. This is chaos. The United States and the UK are now committed. We can't just run away, or all the shipping will be under threat. And because we've issued, or because we bombed them, right, now we're engaged in some sort of hostile activity. And how that works out over time, we don't know. We have to just watch this thing. It could grow, it could shrink. The Houthis could get a brain, right?
Yep.
Not likely, though, right? And so you're going to see extremists within the Middle East driving not only U.S. policy, but driving now Chinese policy. And that's one of the big reasons that Iran has sent the Revolutionary Guard down to Houthi land, if you will, because the Ayatollah doesn't want to be drug into something he doesn't want as well. I mean, he does want pressure put on the United States to leave, but he doesn't want so much pressure put on that all of a sudden the United States is going nowhere. They're now in a war with the Middle East.
Yeah.
So everybody's riding this ragged edge, running their own franchises, and we don't know how this is going to sort out.
Right. So William, if you don't have nothing else to add, I've looked through my notes. I've been checking them out here to see if I have anything else. And the only thing is the threat of China is now working with Iran. The BRICS, the whole BRICS thing is now coming together, and China feels, I'm not going to say positive, I'm going to say strong enough to start making threats to the United States.
Yeah, direct military threats.
Yeah.
So that's not like this is our waters anymore, right? The South China Sea. Right. We claim these waters. No, this is in international waters on the other side of Asia, getting involved to push back against the United States. That's nearly an act of war.
Yeah.
If they fire on a U.S. ship.
Well, that's what he's counting on.
When the U.S. gets a ship fired on, or oil traffic gets slowed down, that's the cardinal sin of the 20th century, slowing down the transportation of fuel and driving up the price of gas. That's a God Almighty moment. We'll react.
Yeah.
It won't matter who it is. So I don't know if China really recognizes that fact. So that's another escalation that we have to watch, here on the World War III report. Yeah. And I hate the fact that we have to have this World War III report, actually.
Me too. But who else is going to do this?
It's disturbing. Every time I go through this stuff, it's even more disturbing to me. I'm already pretty damaged from my time in the military, but and I can explain what's happening, and it's logical what's happening, right? Given the global powers, because anytime there's a vacuum, a power has to fill it. If one superpower does one thing, all the other superpowers must do the same thing. So it all makes sense. It seems like it's not too dangerous to us because it's logical, but everybody's willing to push it to the next step. The Houthis are willing to push it to the next step. Hezbollah is willing to push it to the next step. Hamas is ready to push it to the next step. What happens when Mexico decides to push it to the next step?
The cartels, yeah.
Right. We got problems.
And if they all do it at once, I think we're going to be really stretched out beyond. I can't say we couldn't handle it, because we're one of the greatest military nations. I think we could do it. I think no matter how many wars, I think we're able to handle it. We got an awesome military.
Well, we have a professional military. Everybody in the military has the equivalent of an associate's degree, right?
Yeah.
Just in their military training. But we have master's and PhD level people all over the military. We're lucky, but what happens the day we have to start conscripting and drafting people in, and just give them the cursory training, this is how to take a gun apart here, this is how to put it together, this is how military discipline works. Oh, guess what? You're going to a bad place. Now you have mistakes going to happen. Then you end up with situations like My Lai. You end up with atrocities happening because these people aren't as well trained. They don't understand what's happening beyond them, right? They only understand their situation they're in right at that moment.
Right.
They can't take that and generalize it across world policy. And so they're going to start making terrible mistakes, just like the Russian army, just like the Ukrainian army, because they're a conscripted army. And that's bad for the United States. It's bad for everybody.
Yeah. And I think they all study previous wars to keep from making those mistakes. I really do think that.
Well, we have War College, Elly. There's a Naval War College, there's an Air Force War College, and there's an Army War College. We actually study all of this stuff. Now, the Russians have kind of a war college.
Isn't that like
but
football?
It's not quite the same.
Because football does the same thing. Football studies each of the past moves to be able to make the moves to win the game. And that, to me, that's just, it's kind of the same concept for if I could put it that way, for people to understand that we look at past military conflicts to improve and not make the same mistakes.
Yeah. And keep in mind, all these leaders, from Jinping or Putin, they care about their countries and their leadership, right? But they don't care a bit about individuals in their country, right? They have no problem with sending individuals to war. And keep in mind, every superpower, every national leader that's powerful is a warlord.
Yeah.
Biden, by extension, through the Department of Defense, is a type of a warlord, a more peaceful warlord, but a warlord nonetheless. And this is a balancing act between these people. They don't care how many people they use up in these wars. They care more about how much the weapon systems cost, right? Because that affects their economy, that affects their rule. But as far as blood goes, not so much. So I hope we stay away from war, because wars are won through treasure or through blood, and I would rather have a strong enough military that we just don't even have to go to war in the first place.
Yeah. Okay, William, I think that's it for tonight for the World War III report, and I'll be back tomorrow with more war news, world news, as well as the weather and lifestyle news. We're almost through a whole week, and next week is going to be kind of kind of weird. I have a lot of appointments for next week, so we might have to change things up a little bit. But this week, as far as we go, is set. So, and Susan says, good job, thanks. Susan, did you learn something tonight? I really hope our viewers are learning something, something they haven't heard before.
Karen has a question there. Why does the world think that they have the right to tell Israel not to protect themselves? Okay, Israel was attacked by Hamas, right? They have the legal right, due to the current world order, to go to war, to protect themselves. They have an absolute right to self-protection. And so nobody really has a right to tell them not to protect themselves.
So, okay, William, well, I thank you very much. I think us tag teaming it, I think people like to hear us together. And I have us feeding back and forth on what you got and I got, and then we just kind of add in our own what we've experienced. And I think it helps people understand what they're not hearing on the mainstream media.
Yeah, and also we had I'll give you the information, but we had a submarine commander relieved of command that Elly will probably talk about tomorrow.
Yeah, so okay, folks, come on back tomorrow, but hit that like and subscribe. Those likes is going to help you to be able to see us more often, as well as if you subscribe. But those thumbs up and the likes really does what YouTube has told me is it brings you more of our shows past shows to where you see us on your feed a lot more. Um, and so, hit the like, hit the subscribe, share our shows. If you're looking at another show and you say, wait a minute, William and Ellie already did that, say it in there. Say Investigator News already said this. We're way ahead of you guys because it does draw attention to our show. It gets more viewers to us. All right, William, I want to thank you very much for all the help the last couple weeks. And now we're going to move into a week that's kind of rocky, but I think everybody likes William. So, all right. Uh, with that, subscribe, hit the like button, and thank you, William.
Thank you all for letting me be part of this. I enjoy it.
Yeah. And have a wonderful week. If you're snowed in, better off just sharing our show and looking at some of our other shows that we have to offer. So with that, like, subscribe, and you know what? Just God bless, and God bless America.